And Shabbat Shalom and greetings to the 12 tribes scattered abroad. We're in the final chapter of the Wisdom of Solomon. We're chapter 19 today. Turn in your Brenton Septuagint. And whilst you're turning there, greet one another in the chat. A couple of announcements to make before we go into the text. Please remember, down below you can sign up for the Feast of Tabernacles 2025, or as we call it, Sukkot at Sukkot. And we're going to be over on the beautiful Oregon coast. We've got RV spots, we've got tent spaces and cabins, or you can also do Airbnb in the local vicinity if you like a little bit more plush. But please do register for the Feast of Tabernacles this upcoming season. And if you are planning on attending, we do have a few requests for helpers. We do need some helpers in the kitchen and dining room area. I know that Kathy has volunteered to be the kitchen manager this year, and she volunteered Deb Hill, I think, for the coffee bar, so thank you, Deb. Oh, and by the way, cheers, Chris Warnocky. Thank you for the lovely letter this week. I remembered my sponsor. Thank you. Cheers. Also, we need several people to help us in the children's ministry, either teaching or helping with crafts, and that age group is about 5 to 12 years old. So if you have a heart for the youngsters, then please, we'd love to get you involved in that. And then if there's somebody that would like to lead a class or two for the juniors, that's, age group 12 to 15 years old, I should say, and has a heart for the youth, then please contact us regarding that as well. And then anybody that would like to host or be interested in hosting some of the campfire chat sessions where we can do midrash or talk or lead on a topic of your choice that's appropriate for the Feast of Tabernacles. So if you're interested, and we would really love your assistance, it's a labor of love, the feast, it's a labor of love, then please email us at feasts@torahtothetribes.com, or you can contact us through our Shabbat Fellowship group too. So, blessings to you all, chapter 19, and one last thing, those of you that do donate and support the ministry financially, thank you so very much. And if you don't, please consider by donating and texting Torah to that number down below in the description with your gifts and offerings, or you can go to torahtothetribes.com/donate/. It's the last chapter of a great walk, a great journey through the wisdom of Solomon. Let's delve in right into the text without any further ado. As for the ungodly, wrath came upon them without mercy unto the end. For he knew before what they would do, how that having given them leave to depart and sent them hastily away, they would repent and pursue them. For whilst they were yet mourning and making lamentation at the graves of the dead, they added another foolish device and pursued them as fugitives, whom they had entreated to be gone. For the destiny whereof they were worthy drew them unto this end, and made them forget the things that they had already happened, and that they might fulfill the punishment which was wanting to their torments, and that thy people might pass through a wonderful way, but they might find a strange death. I hone in on verse 4. For the destiny whereof they were worthy drew them unto this end, and made them forget the things that had already happened, that they might fulfill the punishment which was wanting to their torments. Grief, anger, the shock of violence. I mean, it all came rushing forward towards us this week, didn't it? Didn't it? I mean, how do we process these raw emotions, brethren? How do we choose to live after such a leader, such a voice is struck down, violence, and has been silenced? Makes you wonder what's going on in the world. We cry out the oldest question of humanity. Why? Why? Why do bad things happen to good people? Why does evil seem to get the upper hand? Why does Pharaoh's chariot still chase the innocent? Harold Kushner once said, "God does not cause our misfortunes. He gives us the strength to cope with misfortunes when they strike." And Solomon agrees. Chapter 19 shows us that Yahweh doesn't author the bullet, but he splits the sea. He doesn't plot the grave, but he makes a way through grief. The judgment on the wicked comes into view in the first 4 verses of our final text in chapter 19. And in verse 4, "As for the ungodly, wrath came upon them without mercy unto the end," in those opening verses. You see, what had happened is Egypt had buried their children. They had mourned their dead. They'd begged Israel to go, and yet in their grief they doubled down. Yes, verse 3 says, they added another foolish device and pursued them as fugitives. Why do the wicked, when wickedness strikes, why do they seemingly double down? And they do. That's what evil does. That's what evil does. Evil forgets its scars. Evil refuses to learn. Evil digs its own grave, as the psalmist says in Psalm 7, verse 14. "Behold, the wicked travails with iniquity, and he conceives mischief and brings forth falsehood. He makes a pit, digging it out, and falls into the hole which he made. His mischief shall return upon his own head, and his violent dealing shall come down upon his very crown." Pharaoh forgot the darkness. He forgot the plagues. He forgot the graves he'd just dug. And in his forgetfulness, he sealed his own destruction. In the light of this week's tragic events, know this: Yahweh's wrath is not reckless rage. It's justice finishing its work. Evil writes its own sentence, maybe even inscribes them on bullets in this case. But the bullet fired by wicked men will always ricochet. The snare set for the righteous saint becomes the very trap that entombs the wicked. In dark times, we must turn to Yahweh's mercy. We must turn to Yahweh's grace. The text turns itself and says thus: that thy people might pass through a wonderful way, but they might find a strange death. You see, it's again, like I said the past few weeks, you've got the same sea, you've got the same night, you've got the same water, but for Egypt, it was strange death, and for Israel, it was a wonderful day. You see, that's the paradox of grace, isn't it? Yahweh doesn't always remove the danger, but he rewrites its meaning. Israel too, they had tasted suffering. They had felt the lash of the taskmasters. They had buried children. They had walked through the darkness. But Yahweh's wrath, it didn't stay on them. Mercy turned the sea into a road, into a highway. Wisdom asks us to dig deeper, even when evil occurs. The question is not, why did this happen? The question is, now that this has happened, how do I respond? It's our response in difficult, tragic times like this that separate us from evil men. We may not understand things, and we may not understand why evil strikes, and why it strikes when it does, and who it targets when it does. But we know this: Yahweh makes a way where there is no way. Never forget, because it's the power of memory. The power of memory. Here's the difference. Egypt forgot. Israel remembered. Verse 4 says, Egypt was made to forget the things that had already happened. That forgetfulness in itself was the judgment. But Israel remembered. Remembrance. They remembered the covenant. They remembered the promise. They remembered the blood of the Passover. And their memory gave them the courage to move forward. It's our memory that gives us the courage to move forward, brethren. Our memory of the scriptures, our memories of prayers answered, our memories of persevering through troubles and trials in our lives. It's our memories that allow us to persevere and move forward. As believers, we should never forget our losses. Never. You never forget the losses that have happened into your life. You use the losses. That's what we do. Egypt forgot its losses and drowned. Israel remembered its scars and crossed over the Jordan into freedom. Don't forget this week a great man, a great voice, a great leader. Forgetfulness, brethren, is death. Whereas we see memory of the righteous is blessed, and memory is life. If you forget what Yahweh has done through this great man, Charlie Kirk, who was gunned down in the prime of his life, despair will actually drown you. But if you remember his legacy, you remember his message of hope, well, that will carry you through. Remember, I said over the past few weeks, there's one night but two outcomes. Or in this instance, one dark day, but two outcomes. One sea, one Elohim, but two outcomes. For Egypt, there was wrath without mercy. For the wicked, wrath without mercy. And for Israel and the saints, mercy without measure. Choose this day whom you will serve. So why do bad things happen to good people? Because pharaohs still harden their hearts. That's why. Because bullets still fly. Because evil still doubles down on grief. I mean, you saw it this week. Evil doubling down on grief. You saw it in your workplace. You saw it in your classrooms. You saw it on social media. Evil doubling down on grief. The most abominable, inhumane posts in the light of such tragedy. How could people be that way, you wonder? That's evil doubling down on grief. But there's hope. You see, evil forgets. And when it forgets, it collapses. Faith remembers, and the faithful remember, and they walk forward. Harold Kushner put it best. Pain makes some people bitter and others compassionate. The difference is what you remember and how you respond. Let's not let tragedy make us bitter, brethren. Let it drive us deeper into his mercy, deeper into memory, deeper into hope. The same sea that swallowed Egypt will carry you and I through. Don't stop walking, don't stop talking, don't stop remembering, and don't stop trusting. The Elohim who opened the sea is still opening the way before you and me today. Solomon's wisdom from just a few verses jumps right out of the text to me in light of the things that happened this week. 5 things, 5 simple takeaways. Number 1, evil, it forgets its scars, so it keeps walking into the same wound. Number 2, the hole dug for others is the hole the wicked fall into. Psalm chapter 7 tells us that very succinctly. Number 3, unrepentant power rots from the inside out. It rots from the inside out. First in the conscience, then in the public. And that's exactly what we witnessed this week in our nation. And number 4, Yahweh doesn't need to chase evil, brethren. Evil destroys itself. And finally, number 5, the same word that heals the righteous burns the wicked. And this is just the opening few verses of our text today. Let's jump into verse 6. For the whole creature in his proper kind was fashioned again anew, serving the peculiar commandments that were given unto them, that thy children might be kept without hurt. As namely a cloud shadowing the camp, and where the water stood before, dry land appeared. And out of the Red Sea a way without impediment, and out of the violent stream a green field, through which all the people went that were defended with thy hand, seeing thy marvelous strange wonders. Verse 9, for they went at large like horses, and leaped like lambs, praising thee, O Yahweh, who hadst delivered them. For they were yet mindful of the things that were done while they sojourned in that strange land, how the ground brought forth flies instead of cattle, and how the river cast up a multitude of frogs instead of fishes. But afterwards they saw a new generation of fowls, when, being led with their appetite, they asked delicate meats. Verse 12, for quails came up them from the sea for their contentment, and punishments came upon the sinners, not without former signs, by the force of thunders. For they suffered justly according to their own wickedness, insomuch as they used a more hard and hateful behavior towards strangers. For the Sodomites did not receive those whom they knew not when they came, but these brought friends into bondage that had well deserved of them. And not only so, but peradventure some respect shall be had of those, because they had used strangers not so friendly. Verse 16, but these they grievously afflicted them, whom they had received with feastings, and were already made partakers, the same laws with them. Verse 17, therefore even with blindness were these stricken, as those at the doors of the righteous man, when being compassed about with horrible great darkness, everyone sought the passage of his own doors. So in verses 6 to 8 in the text, we see that creation bends. It bends to the will of Yahweh. It is able to make a path for his people, just like we see in the Exodus Assassinations may try to close the way, but Yahweh opens highways. In verses 9 through 10, we see the righteous rejoicing. They're leaping like lambs while Pharaoh's plots fail. History shows us that evil, even when it comes into the public square, when evil takes a righteous life, the course of righteousness still leaps forward. Think of Yahushua on the tree that led to the resurrection. Think about Stephen, the first martyr's death that led to Paul's mission. Charlie Kirk's death will lead to Turning Point USA's greatest momentum that you've ever seen. In verses 11 through 13, we see quail, there is provision and punishment of the oppressors. This shows how Yahweh cares while simultaneously punishes. He doesn't just vindicate martyrs, he actually sustains the survivors. He sustains the survivors. And in verses 14 through 17, like Sodom, nations that betray strangers and shed innocent blood, well, they face blindness, they face judgment. Political violence blinds regimes. It exposes their corruption and it accelerates their downfall, the downfall of nations. Evil regimes and assassins, they forget history. They forget their scars. And that's what we see in verse 4. They repeat Pharaoh's mistake, chasing after freedom's voices only to drown in their own devices. Harold Kushner said, "I no longer hold God responsible for the fact that bad things happen to good people. I have learned to see God's role as helping good people through the bad things that happen." You see, in bad times, we don't pray for things to get easier, brethren. No, that's not what we do. We pray to get stronger through the pain. Why? Because this I know. Yahweh turns tragedy into training for those who remain standing. Nitzavim, stand. And if you can still stand, stand some more. Nitzavim, the standing ones. Yahushua's unjust death becomes the very hinge of salvation. Stephen's assassination sparks the expansion of the gospel. In Wisdom of Solomon, idols and broken shells collapse, but divine order purges and purifies. There's always hope in the darkness for believers. Wisdom in the 19th chapter teaches us that creation itself participates in divine judgment and deliverance. Pharaoh's rage after the death of the firstborn represents the madness of wicked men that cling to power through violence. History confirms the text itself, from prophetic martyrs to political assassinations. The blood of the righteous becomes the seed of movements that evil men just cannot stop. Pharaoh forgot his scars, and evil always does. It always forgets. He wept at the graves of his own children, but he still chased after Yahweh's chosen people. That's what evil does. It doesn't learn, it doubles down. And when evil men shed innocent blood, when evil assassinates righteous voices, judgment is not far off. But hear this, the same sea that swallowed Egypt opened up for the righteous. The same tree that silenced Yahushua broke the back of death. Assassins may kill the messenger, but they can't kill the message, because Yahweh will vindicate. Yahweh will preserve. Yahweh will raise up new voices. Sometimes life feels unfair. I get it. It feels so unfair, especially for those left behind. Sometimes the good ones get taken out, and it leaves us asking, why? Why? Harold Kushner said it best. God's role is not to prevent tragedy, but to give us the strength to survive it. The strength to survive it. The wisdom of Solomon shows us Pharaoh thought Israel was finished, but Yahweh opened up a new way. And when good people fall, their legacy lights the path for us to keep on walking. Don't pray for easy times, though, brethren. Pray to get stronger through the difficult times. That's how you honor the fallen saints. You keep moving forward. You keep getting stronger. You keep getting wiser. You refuse to give in to evil. Look at verse 18. I'll take a sip from our sponsor. Verse 18. For the elements were changed in themselves by a kind of harmony, like as in a psaltery notes change the name of the tune, and yet are always sounds, which may well be perceived in the sight of the things that have been done. For earthly things were turned into watery, and the things that before swam in the water now went down upon the ground. The fire had power in the water, forgetting his own virtue, and the water forgat his own quenching nature. On the other side, the flames wasted not the flesh of the corruptible living things, though they walked therein. Neither melted they the icy kind of heavenly meat that was of nature apt to melt. Creation forgot to do what creation was supposed to do. The fire didn't burn. The water didn't wash. Everything was reversed. Look at verse 22. For in all things, O Yahweh, thou didst magnify thy people and glorify them. Neither did thou lightly regard them, but didst assist them in every time and place. That's the conclusion of the matter. Look at verses 20 through 21. Fire forgets its very nature when Yahweh preserved manna and Israel's flesh. And then later, water forgot its nature too, because it turned into dry land. What's going on here? Creation obeys its maker, not Pharaoh, not evil. In verse 22, Yahweh magnifies his people by commanding creation to serve their deliverance. Judgment for the wicked, mercy for the saints. Evil may bend history temporarily, brethren. Oh yes, but it's only temporary. But Yahweh bends creation itself for his redemptive plans. Political violence blinds men. We see that in verse 4 earlier. Assassinations that seek to silence truth, they only quicken judgment. The only quicken judgment. And Kushner reminds us, the question is not why bad things happen to good people, but how good people can live after tragedy without losing faith in the life or faith in their Elohim. How do you walk on? Now how shall I live? But don't pray for easy times. Those are the wrong prayers. Pray to get stronger. The sea doesn't part before the pursuit. It parts when you step in. You have to step in, step up, and step in. That's what you're called to do. Step up and step in to whatever comes your way, and then you'll get stronger. In Romans chapter 8, verses 19 through 22, we see creation itself groans and serves Yahweh's purpose of redemption. creation groaned this week at the assassination of Charlie Kirk, along with millions and millions of people worldwide. In Wisdom chapter 19, we see that creation is an active participant in covenant history. The Exodus is not only Israel's liberation, but the creation realigned itself. Fire forgets to burn. Water forgets to drown. Manna forgets to melt. Evil men in their blindness believe violence secures power, but it doesn't. The text informs us, it shows us, nature itself betrays evil men, and it vindicates the righteous. Chapter 19 squarely frames this week's political assassination for me. It squarely frames it not as divine defeat, but as the tragic reminder of a groaning creation. A tragic reminder of a groaning creation. Yet even in this tragedy, Yahweh bends the very elements towards redemption, reminding us that divine providence is not the prevention of suffering, but the infusion of meaning and strength within the suffering. What does it mean? How can I now live and be stronger? So in conclusion, brethren, it's just a short message. Remember, the same creation that swallowed Egypt opened a path for Israel, opened a path for the saints. Fire forgot to burn. Water forgot to drown. Manna forgot to melt. Because when Yahweh says deliver, even the elements obey. Don't you see it? Evil people may strike violence at righteous voices, but they are only digging their own graves. Pharaoh chased Moshe into the sea, and he drowned in his own rage. Rome crucified Yahusha, yet the cross became the throne of salvation. America sees visionaries like Charlie Kirk cut down, but his dream still runs like fire throughout college campuses across the nation, and is now ignited a holy fire in this nation and in the whole world. But evil, it forgets its scars. But grace remembers. And when the wicked scheme, brethren, creation itself testifies. Yahweh is for his saints. He is for his people. And no weapon formed against us shall prosper. Be blessed. Be holy. And be strong in such difficult times. This is a great closing to a great book for us to really dig deep and see the grace and mercy of our Savior and have the reassurance that the creation bends to look after the saints. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.